Hey everybody, Happy New Year. I'm starting the year off right. I just took a selfie instead of starting the video. So, you know, I wouldn't say new year, new me, but new year anyway. I hope that you are doing well out there and that you've had nice holidays, whatever holidays that you choose to celebrate, or that you've had like a nice rest if you aren't celebrating any of the holidays, but that you've had some time to yourself to do some reading and just kind of, you know, maybe get a little relaxation and rest or some fun in. Uh, Let's see. Yeah, here we are. Favorite books. This is always the time of year to talk about favorite books. And I thought I would do something a little different this year. If you follow me on Instagram, my Instagram information is in the description box below. You know that I already posted my favorites for 2024, my favorite reads. I don't do best of. I just do what my favorite books were, the books that resonated with me the most, or that I just really felt like I connected with the most. And I had 18 books on that list. So, not a short list. I read 56 books. I'm not a stats keeper, but I just know that because, I do kind of track just to see where I am. I'll put that list in the description box also below. I'll put that list of books, but I'm not going to just cover those books today. I thought that I would do something a little different, and this is an end of year survey that I did a couple of years back when I had a book blog, and it was a lot of fun. I didn't create it. I didn't create these questions, so they were created by a book blogger called the Perpetual Page Turner, who put this survey together. And I'm not sure if that blog is still active, but if it is, and if that's still going on, I'll put that link also down in the description box. But it's kind of a fun little, survey of the year and things that I read, and just sort of coming at it, favorite books and favorite experiences from a different angle. So this isn't a tag, but if anyone out there decides they want to do this, I'll also put the questions in the description box. So if you decide that you want to pick this up and run with it, I think that would be great. So yeah, like I said, it's not a tag, but if you want to turn it into a tag or you want to follow on with this, please feel free to do so. So, okay, yeah, without further ado, let's just get started on the questions. And the first question is, the best book you read in 2024. And for me, the best book I read in 2024, I think, was Mobility by Lydia Kiesling. This is not a book that anybody has really been talking about on BookTube or Instagram. I got a little bit of buzz when it came out. It's Lydia Kiesling's second novel. I believe her first novel was called Golden State. I didn't read that one, but I have been following Lydia Kiesling since she actually was just a book blogger, and then she went on to become editor of The Millions. She's also done a lot of feature writing journalism for various large publications. But I think she's a terrific writer. I can see why Mobility was a bit of a sleeper hit. It's a book about a woman. It's actually kind of a coming of age story. It starts with their main character, her name is Bunny. When she's a teenager, she is living in Azerbaijan with her family. Her father it works PR for the State Department, and she sort of grows up around a lot of world happenings and things that are going on, and she's sort of affected and sort of not affected. She's just trying to live her life, but the book follows her throughout her life and through a career that she starts in the oil industry, and it just is such a quiet and subtle book. It's a really different approach to, I think, looking at what our world is like and what is happening in our world through sort of a character who really could be anybody, as opposed to really taking a more heavy-handed or political angle on the oil industry. and what it does politically and how it works in the world. I just thought that it was so terrifically done. It's terrifically well written, so I highly recommend it. It has stuck with me all year. I also then have the best mystery that I read this year, which was The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. I thought that that was really fantastic. My favorite nonfiction books of the year were The Friday Afternoon Club by Griffin Dunn, which I'm hoping to talk about in a video later in January because I just read that at the end of December and I want to give it some attention because I also am reading The Shards by Bret Easton Ellis now, and those are kind of intertwined. But also, my other favorite nonfiction book of the year was Shakespeare Was a Woman and Other Heresies by Elizabeth Winkler. I just thought that was a terrific book. It was about the Shakespeare debate, you know, who was Shakespeare? Was Shakespeare really Shakespeare? And really sort of taking a fresh and high level look at that debate and what's going on there. But she's got a great sense of wit and she's very smart and it was very clear and thorough and I really enjoyed it. And then this year, I actually dipped my toe over my ear into audiobooks. I think I got through 4, which is not many, but that's something that I'm looking forward to doing more of in the new year as I'm trying to get more walking in and more movement. I've found that audiobooks are a great way. They sort of motivate me to want to get out there and go for a walk. But my favorite audiobook of the year was True Grit, read by Donna Tartt. If you have not experienced that, even if you don't like audiobooks, if you are like walking or taking a trip, I just highly recommend it because she just has such pitch perfect delivery of that book. It's just incredible. So yeah, there's my favorite, my best, I guess my best of 2024 overall. All right, the next question is a book you were excited about and thought you would love but didn't. I have 2. Unfortunately, I have 2. One was way off the mark and one I still really enjoyed, but it just didn't hit the way that I thought that it would. The first one that I was highly anticipating because I really love this author and I've loved several of her books. It was The Cliffs by J. Courtney Sullivan. I really love her book Maine and also her book, I always want to say Saints for All Occasions. I always want to say The Patron Saint of Liars, but that's Ann Patchett. I get those 2 books confused, or those titles confused. I was so looking forward to this book. A bit of a ghost story, a bit of a kind of a bit of a mystery, if you will. It just really didn't hold together. It started off strong. I had planned to do a video about this book entirely, but I don't know. I don't really like to do negative reviews. But honestly, this book just didn't really know what it wanted to be. And late in the game, it just veers away completely from what was the main narrative and the main track of the story and sort of starts to wedge in 2 other narratives. One just like in a chapter that feels like it comes out of nowhere, and another one that just feels like it's sort of tied to the main narrative, but it just takes another track with it that just doesn't make any sense. And then things get wrapped up very quickly in an unsatisfying way. Her writing is wonderful. I will read whatever she writes, but this one just did not really work for me. The other book that didn't quite hit for me this year, and I'm so disappointed to say this, is Tell Me Everything by Elizabeth Strout. I know, Elizabeth Strout's one of my favorite authors, and I know this is on a lot of people's best of lists. While I did like it, it didn't make my best of. I think I'm going to have to reread it. There were just several things about it that didn't work for me. It being away from Lucy, especially since this is supposed to be technically one of the Lucy books, one of the Amgash, I guess that's how you pronounce it, series, Amgash series. It's supposed to be in that series, but it really just, I felt very far away from Lucy. This is really more about Bob Burgess, who I do enjoy as a character, but I really wanted more of Lucy. There's almost no William in this book. And then we do have an appearance here by Olive Kittredge, and that appearance and that connection was not very satisfying for me ultimately. So maybe when I read it again, I will see more about what Strout was doing. I know she really does some interesting things with her narrative point of view, and she took a very high level, pulled back way into third person omniscient on this one, when we've been really a lot in first person with Lucy Barton and really in her vision. And so and then she's usually in close third with Olive. So this was very strange to pull back so far. But, you know, it was a good book, but ultimately not what I had hoped. So, okay, enough about that. Let's move on. Let's see. The most surprising book you read in a good way this year. For me, that was something I read on a whim. I had never read this author before, even though I think she has like 4 or 5 novels that she's published. And that was This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. It was most surprising in a good way for several reasons. One was Emma Straub is one of those authors who's sort of been everywhere, and for some reason I have been avoiding her because I don't know, I kind of expected her books to be a little bit twee, and I found that not at all. I read 2 of her novels this year. I read This Time Tomorrow and All Adults Here, and she's absolutely not as twee as I thought she might be. I don't know why I thought that. But also This Time Tomorrow was really a pleasant surprise because of an element in the book that it has, which is something that is unusual for me to like in a book, but here I found it really seamless and wonderful. I don't want to say what it is because it could be a spoiler, and it was a shock to me. I had no idea that this book contained this element, this sort of narrative element, and it was like, oh, okay, that we're gonna do that now. And at first I was like, oh no, but it just ended up being really seamless and wonderful. So that was my pick for most surprising in a good way. Oh goodness, it's hailing. Oh, it's been sunny, now it's hailing. I just love winter in the Netherlands. Okay, the book you recommended most to people this year, I think probably Collected Works. I know that I talked that up a lot at the beginning of the year. I really did love that book. I know a few people who picked it up or tried to pick it up. It's a book that I think may not work for everybody. It's a long book. You have to sort of be willing to be immersed in it. I think it's a good book for wintertime because of the feeling that it evokes. It's sort of part mystery, part coming of age, part family book. It kind of deals with a bit of everything, and I really loved it. Mobility, I've recommended to several people just because I feel like that's a book that I want to see in the hands of more readers, and I'll probably be continuing to recommend that book this year as well. And then the third book is Mercy Street by Jennifer Haig, because I love Jennifer Haig and I just want everybody to read all of her books. So I think those 3 were my most recommended throughout the year. But you guys, maybe you think differently. I never really know what it is I say. And I don't go back and watch my videos. So I don't know, I could have been recommending other things all year and it's just gone from my brain. So what are you gonna do? Okay, the best series that you discovered this year. I actually started 2 series this year, both of them mystery series. Read the first book of each and will probably continue on with them because I really enjoyed them. And the first one was The Violent Conspiracy by Brendan Slocum. I believe that was recommended to me by K. Webb Harrison, a viewer, a channel supporter, YouTube supporter, YouTube Denzian? I don't know. But I really enjoyed that. That is about Ray McMillan, who is a professional violinist, and it was just fantastic. There's a second one coming out, or that has already come out, and it's Symphony of Secrets that also features Ray McMillan, so I'm looking forward to that one. The next one was Shutter by Ramona Emerson. She is a Native American writer, and that's a book about a woman, Rita, I hope I'm saying this right, Rita Todachene, who is a photographer. She works with the Albuquerque, New Mexico Police Department, and she is a crime scene photographer. And she also, though, can see dead people. She can see the dead, and so this she is sort of helping them to fight crime in more than one way. This was a terrific book, very atmospheric. I think if you're somebody who liked like Tony Hillerman, you're probably going to like Ramona Emerson. And the next book in the series is Exposure, and I'm looking forward to reading that one as well. Okay. Favorite new authors you discovered this year? Oh my God, this is a long list. I have a long list of authors. All of these are debut authors with their these are their debut books. So the first one was Caroline O'Donoghue with the Rachel Incident. That was one of my favorite books of the year. I just thought that book was really wonderful, warm, funny, just a terrific coming of age story. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. She's a terrific writer, and I look forward to anything that she writes next. Um, Fatima Asghar with When We Were Sisters, which is the story of three sisters who are orphaned and go to live with an uncle who's just, to say that he's scammy just doesn't even begin to cut it. But it was a really terrific, just a terrific book about family and about queerness and about finding your place in the world and figuring out who you are. The next one was Morgan Talty's Night of the Living Rez, linked stories set up in, I believe, with the Penobscot Indians in Maine. Just a fantastic writer, just such a strong character, such strong voices. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to read Fire Exit. I'll read anything that Morgan Talty writes based on this experience. The next one was Boy Parts by Eliza Clark. That one was just, I can't believe that somebody with writing a debut novel could, tackle a character who is just so really sort of unreliable, not likable at all, but so intriguing and so controlling and so just kind of manipulating you as a reader, manipulating the people around her. I found it just, she had such command of this narrative, and it's a dark and deep book. Looks at class, it looks at objectification, it looks at sexuality, it looks at just at eating disorders. It just, everything that you can think of, it tackles so sharply. I really thoroughly enjoyed it. I've got her second book, Penance, on my list to read, or on my shelf to read actually next. And then the last one on the book is Sirens and Muses by Antonia Angres, which I've thoroughly enjoyed. That this is a book, it has 4 points of view, a group of characters at an art school, 30 students and one lecturer, I guess you would say, who is also an artist. He's like a visiting professor in a sort of Rhode Island School of Design type of school. They're brought together in this academic setting, and then the book goes along for about half the book they're in the academic setting, and then the rest of the book they're in New York. And this book also looks at class and looks at art in much the same way that Eliza Clark's Boy Parts does, although we've got these other 4 points of view. The book is set during the Occupy Wall Street movement, so it really takes a look at the commodification of art, who is an artist, what is art, and then also, how the art world is influenced by economics. So just a fantastic book, super sharp writing. I look forward to reading anything that Antonia Ingres writes. So I have got really lucky with new authors this year. All right, the next one is the best book out of your comfort zone or a new genre. And I really didn't go out of my comfort zone this year. I think, probably if I had read something science fiction, that's probably the genre that's the most outside of my comfort zone. I do read some fantasy. I didn't really read any this year. I read mysteries and things like that. I don't read a lot of noir though, or like any kind of hard boiled or anything. But one book I really did enjoy this year was Charlesgate Confidential by Scott Van Dvorak, I think his name is. I'll have to put that up. This was a really fun kind of hard-boiled noir it goes back and forth in time. The premise of the story is based on the Isabella Gardner art heist, but it's just set in a different period of time. So we've got gangsters, we've got murder, we've got an art heist, we've got kind of like a mysterious building. It's just, yeah, it was just really well done. That was recommended to me, or loaned to me actually, by a friend of mine who's in my writers group, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Let's see, the most thrilling and unputdownable books that you read this year. This was not necessarily a year for unputdownable books, but I did read two books very quickly. So I guess you could say they were unputdownable for me. And the first one was This Time Tomorrow by Emma Straub. I read that, I think, in a day and a half. So yeah, that was unputdownable. And then also The God of the Woods, which I thoroughly enjoyed and also really read in like 2 days time, maybe 3 days time, because I just didn't want to put it down. I was very much into the story. So those were my two most thrilling unputdownable books. Let's see. The book you are most likely to reread next year. Well, technically, I guess this is supposed to be done at the end of December, but the book I would read again this year from last year, probably Mobility by Lydia Kiesling. As I said before, that's a book I found, it's such a subtle and interesting book, and it has just stayed with me. I keep thinking about how she managed to write a book that was both small and large at the same time. That she's just following kind of an every woman character who's just living a very ordinary life, but somehow this very large topic, this question, is just always looming in the background. And I just think it's such a smart book. I'll probably reread This Time Tomorrow as well, just because it's so clever and such a sweet, sweet book. Let's see, your favorite cover of a book. Well, it had my favorite cover, but it was not my favorite book. And that is Orbital by Samantha Harvey. The cover is gorgeous. I don't have it here. Let me look, see if I have it to hand. I probably should have had it to hand. Really, really, it's a beautiful cover. Samantha Harvey's Book of Lists is the subtitle that I have given that book. But yeah, it had a gorgeous cover, so I'll, put the thing up there. Okay, the most beautifully written book you read this year, for me, that was a reread, and that was Plain Song by Kent Harif. This year, this year, what year is it? In 2024, I reread the whole trilogy by Kent Harif. It was a buddy read with Sonia from An Enthusiastic Reader, and we both really enjoyed reading those books together and reading them for the second time. I think Sonia there may have been one that Sonia was reading for the first time, but I know we had both read Plain Song and Benediction, and we both agreed that Plain Song is our favorite, and it was the most beautifully written book that I read this year. The book that had the greatest impact on you this year. Again, I would say mobility, just from the standpoint of thinking about it and how did she do what she did. So both from a reader perspective and a writer perspective, that was probably my favorite. Let's see. A book you can't believe you waited until 2024 to read. Probably, I would say The Singapore Grip by J.G. Farrell, which I read as a buddy read with Roz from Scally Dandling About the Books and Sarah from Roadworthy Reads. Just Roadworthy. Sorry, Sarah. Oops. I really enjoyed reading that. I had read the Troubles last year with Sarah, and I actually didn't finish that one. It just didn't click for me. But I had also read the Siege of Krishnapur back in 2010, I think it was, or 2011, and really enjoyed it. So I had been meaning to get to the Singapore Grip for a long time and just hadn't done it, and finally read it this year, thoroughly enjoyed it. Really was a great book for a buddy read. Probably the other book that I can't believe I waited this long, although it wasn't that long, it was only a couple of years, was Mercy Street by Jennifer Haig, just because she is one of my go-to authors, one of my favorites, and that book was published in 2022, and it took me until the end of 2024 to read it. Okay. So, the next question is a favorite passage from a book you read. And one of my favorite books this year that I read was Leonard and Hungry Paul by Ronan Dessian, I believe his name is. And it's such a fantastic little book, a quiet little book about a friendship between two men, Leonard and Hungry Paul. And about how their lives change over the course of a year or so. And this is a quote from Leonard, because much of the book is in first person from Leonard's point of view. And this is Leonard, I believe, talking about Hungry Paul. And he says this: "He never seems to look back, or at least he never seems stuck in something that has happened. Watch him the next time you spill something. His whole attitude is that it has already happened, and he just moves on to cleaning it up. He's all about what's going on now." And this book was, you could almost look at this book as a kind of, I wouldn't say it would be like a self-help book, but there's a lot in this book that is a balm for the spirit, if you will. It just is such a lovely look at friendship and family and the world around us, and really has some gentle wisdom that it imparts, and I really enjoyed it. I'm trying to cover up the lights that have come on the timer with my head, because they are my fairy lights that I always have up, and they twinkle in the videos, so I'm trying to cover that with my head. Okay. Told you, it's a new year, but it's not a new me. Okay. The shortest and the longest book you read this year. The shortest book was my first book of the year for 2024, was 84 Charing Cross Road by Helen Humph. I did that as a buddy read, or a group read, actually, not a buddy read, with Sarah at Hardcover Hearts. She put together a read-along at the beginning of last year to read that book. She may have done it again this year. Such a lovely book. I look forward to reading this one again as well. It was 113 pages, so that was my shortest book of the year. My longest book of the year was Collected Works at 610 pages. I think some people have picked up this book and said, yes, it feels exactly that long, if not longer. For me, I just found it completely immersive and really loved it, so I didn't mind it at all, and it didn't even feel that long to me. I was surprised. I was thinking that it was around 500 pages, but no, it was 610. Okay. Let's see. A book with a scene that had you reeling and dying to talk to someone. I don't tend to read those types of books. I feel like that's probably going to be more like thriller or fantasy genre. Maybe sometimes in literary fiction or that type of fiction there's something, but I don't really have an answer for that one. But I would say that there were several books that I think I really would have enjoyed to do as a buddy read, or a group read, just so we could sort of talk about some of the issues in the book and the way the author handled them. I sound like a broken record. One of those books is Mobility by Lydia Kiesling. The other one is Mercy Street by Jennifer Haig. So Mobility covers the oil industry. Mercy Street is about choice, pro-choice, abortion, women's rights, and those things. And then also one of the last novels that I read this year, The Groundskeeper by Lee Cole, which was also fantastic. And I guess I would also include that novel as one of the best new discoveries of this year. Although I think The Groundskeeper was published quite some time ago, and haven't heard anything from this author since then. It's his only book, so we'll see if he's going to write another one. But that was an interesting book that also looks at sort of somebody coming at life from a, the character wants to be the main character wants to be a writer. He takes a job as a groundskeeper so that he can take a writing class. He falls into a relationship with a visiting writer at the university where he's working as the groundskeeper. And in this relationship is able to really explore class issues, political issues, economic issues, and also art, creativity, who has the right to create, whose story is it, who has the right to tell whose story. Just a myriad of things, but it was a really fantastic debut novel. I highly recommend it. Okay, let's see. My favorite relationship from a book that I read this year has to be Aurora and Emma, in terms of endearment by Larry McMurtry. I did that as a buddy read with Randy Ray at the Literate Texan. Thoroughly enjoyed that. It was a reread for both of us, I believe, and that is just probably one of the best relationships in fiction. Aurora is probably one of the best characters in fiction. Emma is actually Larry McMurtry's personal favorite character of his that he wrote about or that he created. He really loved her. And it's just such a fantastic book. I love Larry McMurtry. He's one of my favorite authors. So that's that one. Let's see. Favorite book read from an author you've read before. That I'm going to go with Liz Moore, The God of the Woods. I have read, let's see, 3 of her novels. I haven't read her first book, which I can't at the moment remember the name of. The Words to Every Song, I think, is the name of that book. And I think that's a book of linked stories. But I read her novel Heft, I read her novel Unseen World, and then her latest one before The God of the Woods, Long Bright River. I have enjoyed everything that she's written. I think she's a terrific writer, and that was my favorite. That was my favorite this year. Let's see. And then the best book you read based solely on a recommendation this year. Well, this one, this could be so many books because I get recommendations from you guys. I get recommendations from other booktubers. And a lot of the things that I have picked up this year are based on those recommendations. So I picked 3, and let's see. Night of the Living Rez was one of them. Angelia has talked about this book multiple times on her channel, and I already had it on my radar, but having her endorsement and hearing her talk about it so enthusiastically absolutely made me want to pick that up. Oh, Caledonia. I've heard several people talk about this book, but I think the one that put it over the top for me was I heard Kim at Middle of the Book March talk about it, and she really liked it. She really enjoyed it. So I had kind of bumped that way up on my list, and it was absolutely fantastic. I really loved that book. It was one of my favorites. And then the third one is Lolly Willows, which both I heard Renee at The Left-Handed Reader and I believe Sarah at Hardcover Hearts talk about, and also just was a fantastic read. thoroughly enjoyed it. I read O Caledonia and Lolly Willows for Shorty September this year. They're both short, but so deep, so tight, just fantastic little books. So just great. And that's it. That's all the questions. That's dun dun dun, the end. And it's long enough. It's long enough. I'd like to do shorter videos this year, but what I want to do this year and in January is another video. I'm not going to talk about that now. Okay. All right. Well, I hope that you have enjoyed my end of year survey, or my beginning of year that was about the end of the year, or my beginning of year that was about last year, or just my survey. I hope you enjoyed my survey of my 2024 reading. Like I said, I'll put the questions in the description box below. If you don't have a channel and you want to answer one or more of these questions in the comments, please do, because I love to hear about what your reading experiences were, or if any of this resonated with you, or if you have a differing point of view. If you have a channel and you want to do this, it's a lot of fun. So I recommend it. And I guess that's it. And I will see you in the next one. All right. Take care, and thanks for being here. Talk to you later.